Oh my goodness. I often say I don't care what I look like on camera, but I kind of care what I look like on camera. I don't want to look like a hot mess. Okay. I'm JC from the Duke Letters, a place where we normally like to go to talk about our nerd thoughts. But today, as I'm researching a um, chain of events that happened in my town and the neighboring town in which I live in 47, I believe. I am just, I'm having thoughts. I've had a lot of good conversations lately with a couple people on um, the TikTok app who have been gracious enough to share their point of view on when white people share traumatic stories of Black people. Um, I've been taught a certain way. We've all been taught a certain way. I was kind of taught not to be racist, but um, although that was the intent, I don't know that that was the result. And um, I mean that because of ignorance, not because of the blatant racism that you think of when people say they were brought up that way. Um, my parents, of course, were not like that at all. The area that I grew up in was, is, and the place where I live now is. And no, it's not everyone. And no, it's not every white person, but it's enough. Even if there's just one, it's worthy of speaking. Speaking on and educating ourselves. So, the story I'm researching is of Willie Earle. They claim it's the last lynching in South Carolina. Um, we'll go with that for their story, right? So, the interesting conversation that I have had with a gentleman online in regards to my confusion on why it was wrong for a woman, a white woman who was sharing a traumatic experience that Black people as a whole have been through during times like during slavery. And it was explained to me that number one, she was profiting off of it. It's from a t shirt. And number two, when Black women were explaining to her, no, please don't do this. This isn't, we don't like this. This is making us uncomfortable. She kind of doubled down and continued to justify why she was doing what she was doing. And again, it seems that, from my understanding, from this conversation with the gentleman and other people I have, other Black people who I have chosen to listen to, read comments, watch their videos, read their articles, have conversations with those that feel comfortable having conversations with me. Um, I kind of lost my train of thought. It's one thing to very verbally advocate, very loudly advocate, call out people, do things, talk about the shocking things. But it's an entirely different thing to actually cause change, to find the information where people can go to change the laws, where people can go to right the wrongs, and for that person so loudly proclaiming that they're an ally to do the change themselves, to be proactive in the change themselves, and things that are actually going to be effective, like changing laws on a civic level, on a national level. Um, I believe those are some of the points that are being made and that I'm understanding. The only thing that I can relate it to, which I will never be able to fully understand, is that someone with disabilities, which I have a loved one who has disabilities, first of all, we've been told certain things aren't a certain way, and oh, there are laws about that. Yeah, well, people need to adhere to the laws. Just because there are ADA laws do not mean that people actually, businesses, adhere to them and follow them as they should. And then it's a big battle, and sometimes a very costly one, to hold people accountable for following those laws. And it can be very intimidating, and most of the time people just don't. Who wants to be a bother, you know? We've had people tell us that that's not really how it is when we're literally experiencing it and we're telling them, no, this is happening. We have had um, people have the best intentions in trying to advocate, but it's not the right way. And I don't have a perfect example of that right now, and I apologize, because why complain about something if you're not willing to give? It's not that I'm unwilling, I just can't think of it. I like to give concrete examples and concrete solutions. Right now, this wasn't the intent of this video, so I don't have a prepared example. Maybe one will come to me. But anyhow, I think those are some of the things that I'm getting from the conversation that I had with this gentleman. And one thing that he shared, because I explained that I thought I was doing good by sharing things that a lot of people like me did not know, that were occurring. I didn't learn about Jim Crow until I was an adult and in college. Like, I started college in my 30s, and it wasn't until after that set time in college that I actually learned that Jim Crow were laws. Like, I had heard of segregation, but I thought people were just doing that on their own because they were assholes. And they were, but it turns out they had a legal right to be assholes, which I was astounded by. I didn't know actual laws were created that Black people couldn't use a water fountain, or so on and so forth. So I explained to this gentleman that I thought I was doing good by sharing this information on a platform like this. Um, and he said that if I do it from a white person's perspective, like, how did we contribute? And not just focusing on Black people's trauma, that it would be more palatable approach, I assume. Um, so that's what I'm here to do. And he told me that I'm going to get things wrong. So I'm going to get things wrong. No fucking tears, though. Hell no. So back to the Willie Earl, which was supposedly South Carolina's last lynching. I will put information out there where you can find the story itself. He died a horrible death at the hands of 31 men. And there was a trial in Greenville that gained national attention, and probably unsurprisingly, nobody was found guilty. So I was looking into who was the attorney defending these people, and his name was John Bolt Culbertson. And in researching him, I came across a couple articles and also um, an oral interview between Mr. Culbertson and a gentleman, I think his last name is Gravely, that wrote a a book about um, the death of Earl Williams. Um, they stole him out of jail. Willie Earle, South Carolina's last lynching victim. I have not read that, so I don't have an opinion on it yet. But I know he did some research that is benefiting me from having an easier time with my research. So I stumbled upon this oral interview that is in the archives of the University of South Carolina, their libraries. Oh, I had the exact spot. So, what I learned about Mr. Culbertson is that supposedly he was very active in civil rights movements and defending union workers. And he was not very liked, or his work wasn't very well liked by white people in the area because he did defend Black people. I think he's one of the first white members of the NAACP. And I need to find these things before I'm continuing to say things like this and not have my facts correct. I apologize. I will get into that further, but I just had a moment with finding this oral interview that also has a transcript to see how in the world did this attorney, who it is written that he worked hard for equal rights for Black people. How the hell did he get into defending most of the 31 men who were accused of murdering, is a nice word, Willie Earl? Basically, in this interview, Culbertson claims that someone came to his office, one of his friends that he knew came to his office, and I want to pull up the same quote. I had it and then I scrolled. Okay. Culbertson states, well, anyway, sitting in my office up on the second story of the store downtown, here comes the president of the local union at Woodside. And he said, John, I know how you feel, but blood is stronger than water. I got my two son-in-laws that are in jail. They were in that crowd, and we can't call on anybody but you. Will you help us? And he states, well, what am I going to do? I've been knowing these guys. It says, I've been knowing these guys, and then it cuts off. Oh, the president of the local was from Texas. I don't know how he got up here, but he succeeded in being elected president. And I was on very friendly terms with all the members and officers on that. So I said, well, to myself, I'll represent Blacks accused of RAing white women. I'll represent people accused of murder. And nobody seemed to care about that. So they're entitled to be represented, and I'll represent them. I didn't represent all of them. Good for you. I started at it. They were taking up money all over the county. And let me tell you, to know, they were taking up money all over the county. I'm assuming he is talking, even though he doesn't say plural, I'm assuming he's speaking on both Pickens and Greenville County. I'm probably friends with these people's grandkids or kids. I probably walk around with them. This didn't happen hundreds of years ago. This didn't happen hundreds of years ago. We didn't participate in horrible acts against Black people hundreds of years ago only. This happened 47, 1947. So they were taking up money all over the county, collecting those canisters around, collecting money for the lawyer's fee. I got those boys out on bond. I'm sure Willie Earle's family would probably have appreciated him being out on bond. And some of the people who closely identified with the Ku Klux. They hired other lawyers. Maybe I shouldn't deal in personalities. I'm not quite sure what he's referring to then. Um, and this is his excuse to explanation, if you will. So, first, he's saying that I knew the people, I did business with the people. I mean, I did help represent Black victims in other cases. So, I guess it equals out, is maybe what he's implying. So, this is Culbertson again. I took it upon myself to investigate the jury panel. When I got through with investigating the panel, I wasn't afraid that there would ever be any conviction. So, why even try, I guess? And they're not going to be found guilty anyway. So, I'll go ahead and be on the bad guy side because there's nothing we can do about it anyway. And there might possibly be some mistrial, but there never would be a conviction. So, I kind of played along, not taking the lead role or anything. But everybody knew that I was identified with the labor movement and civil rights and all that. Everybody knew that I did all these things, that I guess maybe he's hoping they assume that he really didn't want to be there, which you have free will, you didn't have to take it. Even though you felt pressured, you didn't have to take it. And I think that's the key point. We can claim to be allies, which I never have, but we can claim to be allies. But are we when the moment matters? In that moment, that's my dog, by the way. In the moment where it's tough and where it's hard and where it's going to affect our relationships with family, with friends, with business, are we an ally then? That's when it matters. That's what I'm thinking I'm hearing today from Black people and other people of color. So I kind of played along, not taking the lead role or anything, but everybody knew that I was identified with the labor movement and civil rights and all that. The people in New York and other places looked to me as one of the bright, shining knights fighting for civil rights and so forth in the South. Well, congratulations. But were you actually? Did the people in the South who are Black think of you that way also? Think that's the point. That's the audience you're trying to persuade there, big guy. They were astounded that I would affiliate myself with it, and I got to be criticized all over the country for defending a bunch of lynchers. Justifiably so. I didn't point out that two of the members of the defense crowd, I mean, the defendants, Their daddy in law was president of the only reliable CIO union in Greenville. Nobody ever said anything about that, but I got a lot of condemnation letters and things like that, criticizing me for defending them. But the same crowd never criticized me for representing Black people before. I don't get, maybe I'm not understanding things. He's not defending Black people now. So of course they would criticize him now for defending people who a mob that killed a Black man. Why would they criticize you for defending Black people? I don't get it. I literally don't understand. So I said, well, I got my hand on the plowshare, have to plow it out. So Jay, I'm not sure who that is, was going to prove the world that I was just as good defending my clients in this case as I was in the others. So I probably went beyond what I normally would have to prove to them that I was giving them a real defense. Thought he said he was just kind of playing along and in the background. It can't be both. And I'm saying all of this to also say that a lot of articles that I have read on Mr. Culbertson were unsurprisingly only praising him and only speaking of the good that he did. But this isn't good. This could have caused a lot of change. Um, had those people been convicted, I don't think they were hiding it. I'm sure things are scary. I'm saying things now from a different standpoint, I'm sure. Most of the time, even today, lynchings aren't super popular. So it may be easier for me to preach from this pulpit, so to speak. But I think this is what we as white people need to take home. You got to do it even when it's scary, because it's going to be scary. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want people coming to me hating, throwing things at my house. I don't freaking know. I don't want to be I don't want to have a traumatizing experience either for doing the right thing. But I hope I still will. I think it just comes down to that moment. What will I do in that moment? I hope I'll do the right thing. All right. So I went beyond what normally I would have to prove them to them that I was giving them a real defense that was part of an act, because I knew that there wasn't going to be any conviction to start with. And can read and listen to all the rest. I haven't read it all because I stopped in that moment of finding out when was the pivotal moment where he, or maybe it wasn't pivotal at all. When was the moment where he decided to take on this case as defending most of the people accused of this crime. And I was so startled to see the articles of him being involved in the NAACP. I apologize, and for civil rights movements. I wanted to know. I wanted to know who the person was anyway, and to see. I apologize. Sometimes my words come out faster than my brain goes faster than my words, but I wanted to see what type of person or who it was, or if I knew them or who they were related to, um, that defended everyone, and then to find out that they were a type of person who would involve themselves in creating justice for Black people, would be the one to defend people accused of lynching a Black person. So I want to hold myself accountable to a certain degree. And hey, it may be easy for me to say he just shouldn't. What's going to be my time? What's going to be my moment? Yeah. Go out and read and educate yourself today. Go listen to Black people. Don't speak, just listen. That's it.